forgot I had phone. But we've got it now. On this will be a little different because I'm like tapping into the moon. Um, I do think that other questions need to be answered, and maybe something that I've been sitting on for a little bit too long, even though I know it's necessary. Um, and calling to the earth and the collective. Um, um, chaos abounds. Chaos abounds. I've been putting off doing this because Chiron in Aries has a lot to say. And a lot of people need to hear it. But perhaps aren't saying it out loud, so somebody's gotta. Um, and that's been going on for a while, and now Venus is retrograde. And not just that, Venus is retrograde in Aries with Mercury. And not just that either. Mercury is going to go retrograde next week, along with the moon, along with an eclipse. So this is very much energy charging, consolidating, like building. And maybe that's the anxiety before a leap, and maybe that's a little bit more of the long plotting, planning, long haul. And ultimately an ego death all around. So forgive the acne, but I felt like it was appropriate. Obviously, we're battling egos in my yoga classes, experiments, and in other readings, 100%, a lot of egos being battled, and I do transmute, so it comes out through me a lot. And I recognize when my hormones are interested and invested versus where they were normally or before. Um, and all of this with Chiron, which is our wounded warrior, our broken heart, and with the state of the world, may we be such vigorous fighters, but also such deep lovers. And perhaps this is a wound that needs to be dug into and needed to be dug into for a while now. And if you have seen my run through readings before, well, I'll do every sign. I'll do a top and a bottom card for each sign. And so we're going to do a top and bottom card for each sign in regards to Chiron and Venus and what lesson we can have from them. Yes, does that sound like a good plan? I do read with both tarot and numbers, so that is 4 cards. That's 4 cards. Top and bottom. We move through time and space. And we've got some friends. What's up? Good to see you. Thanks for chiming in. I hope your heart is ringing true and not in cacophony. And even if so, finds its harmony. What else? I mean, I think all of this is really intense, but the converse is also Libra, and though there are no major planets there, Make is an astral body, what is it, a trans Neptunian something or other. There's some interesting aspects to that. Because if you consider that we never look in the empty spaces, or we never look into the hi, we never look into the corners of spaces, or we never, move furniture to sweep. That is very much the places in which there are no planets in astrology. And so I always kind of look to the opposite end of the room. And Makemake is nature. Makemake is, Easter Island. Was found around Easter. So it's like kind of like the I guess if you're religious, kind of like the resurrection in that way. Um, and I think in that regards, we're finding new stability, new source energy, new groundings within the self, new identities within the self, new ways to build that kind of stability in the self. And noticing how that expands in the world is probably what Libra and Make really want us to pay attention to. So where Venus in retrograde feels blind, I think you can rely on Libra and you can rely on the earth to guide you again. And often where we can give core energy back to. So we pull some cards in respect to. I'm going to stack them, and I'm going to breathe for each sign. You don't have to. I have no idea what anybody's talking about in the chat. Well, silly, now's not the time to ask questions, silly. And I have a new deck. So, what better way to break it in than to do all signs? Gosh, I love the way those sound. So succinct. Not yet scorned by the earth. What a perfect Chiron Venus mix. My favorite cards that I've been through. Some shit. And a beautiful new deck that I've already found. Such a beautiful relationship with. All right, what are we doing first? Pisces. Sun and Pisces. All right, stacked. Okay, Pisces. Where are you? Cool, love that. Now it's my bottom. Lovely. Okay. I feel like these are very confident energies already. Let's do top and bottom here. Okay, well, they really can be. They really ought to be. I do feel like, and maybe this is a moment where you can feel proud of yourself, Pisces, because I very much felt this energy of getting something off your chest, of relinquishing something in some way, shape, or form, or releasing or letting go. Send it to the depths of the ocean. A lot of times that can be releasing a secret and airing it out, or releasing some aspect of you that maybe was hidden, saying what you feel. Queen of Cups, bottom of the deck, Nine of Cups, reverse, top of the deck, and then Six of Diamonds, Seven of Diamonds, Six of Clubs, right? These are also cool color spectrum cards. So I'm reading them as like auras or like chakra emanations. In which case, the darker aspect of these colors very much suggests that though that feels like a heavy decision, or maybe like not the right thing to do, oftentimes that's when the body is trying to shirk those things off. So go with the feeling of release, go with the feeling of letting go. Go with the feeling of saying how you really feel and finding out how much space there is in that. In which case, these somber blues and these deep heart wound, hidden heart wound greens, um, can find a little bit more relief and humor in them, maybe, and be able to see, I guess, daylight and joy again. Daylight savings is right around the corner. So, like, the chaotic weather and everything, the barometric pressure that's been changing, um, will pass, and nothing will really change, but things will feel different and can feel better. I think we'll just be able to see them more clearly and through emotions. So don't be so hard on yourself. Like, again, be like get some shit off your chest, be proud of yourself for that moment, um and allow things to change around you in a way that's more centering. The world can spin, but if we are our central point, if we are our source energy, then we're just less phased by stuff. And there's a lot of water energy, so like be one with it. This is your time to shine, when your emotional intelligence perhaps is the time to shine. Yes, party on. Love you, Pisces. uh it felt really good. So intellectually maybe is where the diversion is, and allow yourself to just feel through that, um rather than, I guess, overanalyze or intellectualize your joy. Thank you, Pisces. We'll move to Aries. Yes. These are cool. I actually might just use these. Let's see. Aries, I'm sure you're getting impatient, and also probably like, why aren't you going to use both with me? It's okay. We use everything that we need to. We're sticking with it. All right, Aries, don't get impatient with me. We will use both, but not right now. Aries, my dear, as Venus is in retrograde, as Chiron dwells with it. The King of Spades, the Queen of Spades. What an interesting match. Of course you're going to throw me for a loop like this. When you want everything, isn't it? We're working with similar shades and similar shapes and similar spaces. And I think rather than look at the dissections of um, or the ways in which things feel broken or things feel separated or things feel um, segregated, the ways in which we can be more all encompassing, the ways in which we can not expand our reach, because to an Aries, I think that means like do more. And this is very much like inner turmoil, emotional rather than action. It's all spades, so it's head energy. It's all like shades of red. So I would imagine pleasure centers, root chakra, um, rages even, but all of that's in emotional sensory cortex. Compartmentalization of emotions is also probably a thing here, right? And see how just in that we've hit the nail on the head, and we did not have to reach for more or for another deck or for anything else. We ultimately do have an internal capacity to expand without having to do more, without having to ask for more literally, or ask more of ourselves literally. Perhaps that is asking for other bits of assistance. Perhaps that is expanding the support circle, or being able to circulate responsibilities or duties or what have you, so that you uh, um, free up space for actual thinking rather than like compartmentalizing, and like even all of that in an emotional context rather than like boxing our emotions in one way or another, which ultimately is like anxiety movement, like fractured movement, fractured energy proceedings. um Allow them the space to circulate without the impediments, so that we can come back full circle and come back with softness rather than rage, and come back with, because ultimately you have to go that route to undress the rage and figure out what's underneath it, what kind of sadness or shame or what have you rests underneath it. um tough stuff. um oh, even in that, digesting emotion. Regulation, Libra. How do we regulate that? Is exactly in that. Absolutely. There's a lot of research actually that suggests that humming helps regulate hormones in the body, regulate cortisol, stress, etc., etc. But also it's part of pranayama breathing, because it I believe chemically regulates as well. And then humming is supposed to release more nitrous oxide, which does, feed and interact directly with muscles and tissues that are maybe more tense or coagulated or what have you, and in coagulation, in stagnation, in blockages, in energy. Um, key methods to being able to remove and move through those things, or continue to remain fragmented and segmented, um, and it resulting in a very physical way. Um, the ways in which we can perish off a broken heart, much like Johnny Cash after his wife passed. It's rigidity and softness. Um, And Libra is able to see the usefulness of both, and the Earth is able to utilize both, and understand the power of both. So how do we not allow rigidity to be a double-edged sword, and how do we allow softness to grow in a way that does not feel terrifying? And ultimately, vulnerability is always scary, but we rephrase, we reframe with the grace of nature and make and Libra. We, pivot, we reposition, we reframe, we change our perspective. We, lateral eye movement therapy. We go to the place and we figure out why we've continued to fragment our external world and our internal world. And allow yourself to go down that ultimately also very vulnerable road, but you're with yourself, and the mind and the body ought to be a safe space for you. And so I hope that you can navigate that. Taurus. Taurus, dear Taurus, my sweet earth baby. Your turn. Nobody said my sound sucks, so I'm hoping it's still going through. Unfortunately, I did have some trouble with that last time. Ooh, I also have to say with Aries, that as a new astrological season rolls around and that begins to shift things, um, you see all these courses, and you know what? That again, it's not that you have to do more; it's that you have to be more. It's like that you have to extend who you are in compassion. You don't have to do more; you have to extend in compassion more. Emotional labor, not physical labor. I know that's probably hard. But Taurus, but Taurus, but Taurus. Okay. Taurus, my love, where are you for this Venus retrograde? Ooh, interesting. Okay. I do feel very stable and excited. Um, I also got like a sense of like my ears ringing or stinging even, like maybe that's being sensitive to critique, or being so stable that hearing something new is shocking, that then like the instant reaction is like no longer stable. But um let that not let instances not be a sucker of joy, like critique and watching not collapse the particles, eh? Ooh, interesting. Okay. Seven of Spades, Four of Hearts. Ooh. I feel like that might be bad crowd. And maybe that's also reflective. It's not every crowd, it's not every circle. Um, so perhaps if you find yourself anxious in every setting, it is something more internal. Perhaps if you find yourself anxious in only certain settings, that says more about why, or is directing you to ask questions about why um, certain people are around, or certain things, or certain influences or situations are around. Seven of Spades. There's also maybe like also always there's also maybe also a consistent aspect of like reaching out farther, like just a bit farther, um, or like extending the circle just a bit farther, and maybe that's just like something new all the time, or taking in new data or new information all the time. That's like just a bit destabilizing. That just feels like it's not um as safe as everything before, like as calm as everything has been before. um it doesn't have to be big changes either. I feel like when you're in a groove and somebody gives you just like a different way to do something, it can completely stress you out and throw you off and make you really rigid, and then suddenly you're stumbling over yourself, right? That comes with a lot of overthinking too. uh it comes with maybe like fractured motion rather than momentum. Um, and that's also maybe like the direction and influences, and maybe where we find really good focus, but get thrown off as well. So it can kind of go both ways there. Ultimately, though, I do think that is an overreaching psychic energy, or an overreaching mental energy, learning, maybe more than we're able to practice, or learning a new word every day only goes as far as your ability to use it. And that's where this Four of Cups is also like, where are you able to use it? Are these conversations that are reciprocal? Is this a home that feels, sheltered? Um, in what ways do you feel that anything's poking holes in that? Um, or in what ways do you feel like you're holding back that energy from situations as well? Because again, it goes both ways. Sometimes I'm mindful about what I say in certain circles, because it's always a social experiment, and you just have to, and that's maybe the joy of it, is take off the pressure of expectation or result, and allow it to be an experiment. And if your groundedness is a control group, then you do always have something to come back to, and something to maybe not compare, but in the context of compare data, it was something to corroborate with, um, whether that be, your mind and your body, or yourself and a best friend, or, yourself and a reflection. Party on, Taurus. I love those colors. Find more lightheartedness. and that the 4 will find its room in flowy, easy circles and conversation. My dear Gemini, Gemini. I have spoken on sexual oppression and tantra if you watch other videos of mine, but now is not the time. Now we navigate Chiron and the Venus retrograde and Aries energies, which is very much that, but this very specific question you speak of has an answer elsewhere. Or you can wait for your sign. Particularly your Venus sign, your Mars sign, or where you have Chiron. Ideally, is how. Gemini, though you can be many places at once, spiritually, mentally, physically. Where are you now? Take a deep breath in. Me, because nobody else needs to do this. Ooh, I love that. Of course, of course, of course. Large capacity for creation. There's a lot of excitement. I hope whatever you've been brewing is coming to fruition. I hope whatever's been on your mind, Gemini, is so exciting that you can't wait to create it or do it or be in it. Um, but that also may come with some patience. That also may come with learning to self-regulate. That also may come with and self-regulation like this. Okay, Ace of Hearts, red, Four of Spades, purple. Very extreme separations in bodily, causal body energy and psychic, somatic energy. Worlds apart, even. And that is not just excitement. I really, again, I respect the 2 feet in separate places, but what is the balancing beam in between these? Um, an Ace of Hearts is also leading with the hearts. That's also where are we gathering information? If Gemini is an explorer, if Gemini is so studious, so astute, so observant, then observe yourself for a moment and consider where the heart leads and how we gather information on that. Like even just the ways that we gather hobbies about our favorite hobbies, the way we gather information about our favorite hobbies, the way we gather information about our favorite things. And maybe that's part of the problem, is information isn't just a hobby. We do have to find routes for it. We cannot just be gluttonous about data and information. Because at the end of the day, where does it go? And that creates more and more division. Yes, that is where we're far reaching, but in opposite directions. And if you don't know who you are, you can be put anywhere. You can be spread as far as the day is long. So this Ace of Hearts is very much the direction, and like the voltage, the current, and then these are the many directions, or the ultimate direction that creates the kind of structure that you want. um and perhaps you've been thinking about that already. Perhaps you need to stop being so extreme, because that can be quite angular and rigid. um and allow yourself to flow, maybe in thought, free verse writing. See where it goes, and see, and count repetitions of words, and there you go. That's data that ultimately leads into something more unifying, something more amalgamated, something that ties those distant edges together rather than allows them to be in separate places. I hope that makes sense. But you never know with a Gemini. Cancer. Cancer, Cancer, Cancer. What a sweetheart. Sweetheart or a serial killer. Hmm. Cancer, in the natural cycle of the year. A warm to the touch. Cancer, where are you now? Ooh, okay. Um, Interesting. Very warm to the touch. I feel a lot of warmth too in the back of my head and in the front of my head, which is like memory, like somber memory, longing for something even. Um, I get the sense, that the sadness can keep us warm sometimes. Um, Emotions are very at home for cancers, uh, or they shut him off altogether, and then repression becomes it. Rather than get caught in that, which is maybe the intensity, and that intensity can be quite jarring. And so I understand the want or the need to feel like you have to the survival mechanism to feel like you have to shut it all off. Two of clubs and Jack of spades. Um, But there is something to be said about the healingness of laughter and joy and experimentation and freedom with that. And that is very converse to Gemini. We're not just taking in data, but maybe we've taken in all the sad data, or we've taken in um, all of the misery data, and that has created this idea of impossibility, of lightheartedness and funny, happy-go-lucky things. I think the Jack of Spades is like a reminder that the intensity with which we cry is also the intensity with which we can laugh. And it becomes such a guttural experience of euphoria, and to equal measures. And that's very much this too of clubs. It's the ways in which these experiences mirror each other, rather than it being about, finding somebody else that mirrors that, because that is a dangerous pattern, and not a rewarding one. That's the one where this guy stops having fun and eventually gets his heart broken beyond belief. Um, Although maybe you've been repressing that and ultimately you need to get out there and have some fun. Can go both ways. But what ways in which we allow our emotions to be mirrored reflections of each other, to ourselves, rather than mirroring them through somebody else. Um, And much like I did even reading what's going on in the fucking stars, pay attention to the converse. And when you're caught in cycles of intensity, um, that feel very separating from the self, acknowledging the converse is maybe how we level out and find balance and bring ourselves back to center, rather than lost on the deep end of sorrow. Does that make sense? It's like finding the converse, or complementary, finding a complementary color, or finding the complementary note, even, to sort of harmonize in these instances. And again, sometimes in deep, woeful, bring you to your knees kind of mourning or longing, um, laughter, deep ab workout laughter, not necessarily ab workout, but deep laughter that feels like such, and the situations in which you find that. This is why I love stand-up comedy, and why stand-up comedy, I think, can be very healing, um, especially when it's kind of wild, not necessarily obscenity for the sake of obscenity's sake, but I think some of the best comedians can illustrate something very far and controversial, to uh, take you on a journey back to your own sense of self, and sometimes that's your own sense of hypocrisy. Thank you, Cancer. My dear Leo. Sweet, sweet Leo. You are next. We have a Jehovah's Witness in here. I'm gonna give you an inspirational quote. Get that shit out of here. And that is the way that we embrace Leo, to get shit off our chest. God, who did I say that to? We needed to get some shit off their chest. Where's Leo in your chart? Leo, my love. Where are you? Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. Everybody loves Leo until they're like not feeling their best, maybe. Um, and maybe that feels isolating. Maybe not. Maybe you're lucky and uh, have a lot of other people in your space. At the very least, more than one mirror, so as which to reify your reality. And maybe that can get out of control. Seven of Hearts, Eight of Spades. Um, I feel like Leo is so forthcoming that perhaps when everybody else is being asked to reach a little farther in themselves or what have you, to embrace a little bit more compassion or expand their like kind of compassion. Leo's like, about time I've been doing some shit by myself. Like everybody meeting to that level is also kind of like Leo maybe at its lower point. Um, and not feeling as confident. But these are both very strong cards. So it's like acknowledge acknowledge the equal capacity, yes, acknowledge your strengths, but also your strength in stepping up for yourself too, not just for everybody else. And the ways in which you step up for yourself. What did I say about mirrors refracting? Or compounding the realities. Uh, you can't hold yourself to not being seen when you are going through something. And the more you allow for that, sometimes the deeper the spiral goes until you are willing to reach out. So maybe that needs to be mitigated a little bit so you don't have to spiral. You don't have to spiral. You don't have to speed up the spiral. You can slow down the spiral. And I know that's probably hard to hear because Leos don't really slow down with much fucking anything. But you can slow down the spiral because ultimately, when it comes to speed and velocity, um, when it comes to speed and velocity, you can implode if you expand too continuously. It's a lot like driving a car too, and race car drivers tell you that you can go as fast as you want, but you should only be going as fast as you know you can stop in. So whether you're going 5 miles or 105 miles, how long is it going to take you to stop? And how much space do you need to get there? And that is something that we can also do for ourselves. Sure, we can go, 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 go. But that also, downpours back too, unless we have these ways to mitigate our speed in any direction. Um, what are our triggers? What are the signs? What are ways we can catch ourselves? Again, Seven of Hearts, I think, in breaking up the refractions. If you, like I said, if you had a lot of mirrors, maybe that's just the ways in which you walk through them or the ways in which you talk through them. But that's also 100% just different narratives to break up the story, vignettes even, so that we don't just get whisked away in one single story. That may or may not even be true, because Leo can tend to go pedal to the metal in either direction. Honestly, conversely, if everybody else is just gassing you up, but you're feeling something else is wrong, or everybody else is feeling, is kind of in blissful ignorance, and you're just like, how are you even coping? That says more about the environment than it does you. Again, this is reified narratives, and you're kind of at an odds. So it can feel wrong to be very right, and it can be disillusioning if you're sane in a very sick world. Um, so the ways in which we can purge like putrid or half-assed homies that really only stay in one narrative or one cycle is maybe how we rapidly end up in one way or another, because things don't affect people like they do the fire in us, and we can't base ourselves or the way things are affecting us on the ways it's affecting other people. Sometimes it just really hits differently, and sometimes people are better at repressing than a Leo, quite honestly. I hope that makes sense. That was quite expansive. But what a regal blue. Trust your intuition, not your intellect. Virgo, sweetheart. Got a lot of love for these Virgos. Virgo, where are you? Ooh, I hope you stay very grounded and communicated, but not out of places of having to correct or out of places of having to do too much or do more than your fair share, having to overextend. Also, maybe mind your business in some contexts. Maybe somebody needs to hear that. King of Hearts, Three of Hearts. Okay. Mind your business might still be true, but out of labors of love, will err on the side that it's maybe just the ways in which we like co-regulate, the ways in which that like we want to reach out and we want to help people regulate, but sometimes that creates codependency. Um, that creates codependency where it could have created freedom, and I feel like ultimately that's not what you want. Virgos love their freedom too. It I think structure is a big part of who they are. King of Hearts, Three of Hearts. So this is again well-meaning, I think, in positive relationships, but I think there's a lot of there can be veils of doubt, and that may just be the way we're ingesting them or interpreting them. Um, like doing too much or overcorrecting situations. ultimately shows a lack of faith in people, or a lack of faith in the people that you're teaching to, or what have you. And that can show as a very hardened heart rather than a very giving heart. And that's the veil ultimately, is like the things that we're saying or doing, maybe out of love, or maybe out of like wanting the best. Like I want you to know better. I want you to, have the information you need to be able to do better. But sometimes that can feel really degrading and demeaning. Sometimes that's not you at all, but sometimes the overcorrection tends to send us off in the wrong direction, tends to catapult in the wrong direction. And overcorrection, I think, is a big deal here. And ultimately distorts the true meaning of, because the Three of Hearts is very much a beautiful giving and sharing thing, and the King of Hearts is very much honorable and noble, and intellectual, emotionally stable about these things. Um, but I feel like that can be a very fragile nature for some Virgos, uh, such uh, in such a way that, like if one of these three is not where it's supposed to be, then chaos could break loose, because we do have the king can be very rigid, um, and knows what he wants, but this isn't, again, sharing with Three of Hearts. Sharing, this is also about what other people want and need, and how they're feeling, and overcorrecting in such a volatile state in the world can be both very necessary, but also needs to be tactfully done. um and sometimes we also just have to pick and choose our battles. So all of those things may be applying right now, and all of those situations may throw you for a loop. But stay grounded in your purpose. And the purpose is not to be right, the purpose is to grow. The purpose is not to be better than, the purpose is to share and to grow. And to show who you truly are, which is very much a loving, compassionate creature. Don't distort your purpose, overcorrecting. And maybe that's just applicable to you. Don't distort your passions, overcorrecting for other people. Libra. Libra, what you got? What you got? Where you at? Ooh, okay, okay, okay. Strong, warm, rigid. We've leaned on Libra a lot thus far, and Libra's got its rage too. Nine of Clubs, Two of Clubs. And there's a lot of rage energy. There's a lot of fire. Builds a lot of tension, especially when you're balancing other people's shit rather than your own. Um, or when you're trying to find beauty in the world and everything seems to be burning. When you're trying to find understanding in the world and we keep finding out we've just been lied to. Um, that's very much this Nine of Clubs. It's a lot of intensity, it's a lot of overwhelm, but ultimately it can be illuminating because the Two of Clubs. Again, this intensity of emotion. Where is the converse and all of the things that enrage us, but what gives us hope? What brings out the wells of tears of joy and laughter? Where do we direct this intensity and this energy? Because if we let anger destroy us like the poison it is from the inside out, that's not very revolutionary. In fact, that is what they want. And when we find a place to direct it, when we allow it to get out and off of our shoulders, this maybe genuine sorrow with the lack of beauty in the world, or genuine frustration with the lack of balance in the world, or the gaps of extremity in the world. When we are open and honest about that, and honest about our placement in it, wherever it may be, it is very illuminating, which in turn brings others to the flame. But it allows you to see just in front of you in the darkness too, but it allows you to be able to create within that. It is as much as a light being turned on. It is perhaps the equilibrium in which we find greater states of awakening. It is perhaps where we find, neutrality and, in the membrane between this world and the next. And the ways in which what's on the scales typically balancing the heart and the intellect. Something exists in between those scales, and this intensity needs a route. It needs to be condensed, or it needs to be released, or it will continue to condense within the spinal cord, within the atlas, within the ways energies actually go to the brain, which also makes me think European mountains, the ways in which we distribute power. I know that makes sense. I hope that made sense for you. You have more energy than you know what to do with, so do something with it before it spills over. Because when it spills over, it can level you up, or you can find yourself back at the same square. Love you, Libra. Scorpio. Happy place. Deep, dark Scorpio. Happy place. Where are you with Venus in retrograde and the things that break our heart in Chiron? Scorpio. Scorpio. Where are you? Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. It could go both ways because on one hand, oh, I felt very like buoyant and just kind of floating and circulating and very gently, just to and fro, just energy circulating. And sometimes times of turmoil and times of great unrest is like when Scorpios are like, yeah, duh, do this shit all the time. This ain't nothing new. It's always burning. Um, they're comfortable with burrowing under, where people don't want to get dirt under their nails. Scorpio burrows, and is at home in the darkness. Uh, However, you cannot do that mindlessly, or you do get swept up into the current. Um, if you just bob and flow and are not rooted, you will get swept up into the current. And being a part of emotional turmoil, um, when you're a dominant water sign is not fun. It's like being caught in Wizard of Oz tornado. That being said, there's a lot of heart energy here. There's 6 of diamonds, and a 2 of diamonds, but they are these fun colors, right? Um, Which color spectrum wise, we're going from a very emerald green to a much more illuminated glow, and that gives me the sense of like almost like behind a filter or behind a protective shield. Behind a protective shield, exactly. So that you can continue to glow and actually be able to glow brighter than if you just, Midas touched everything and made everything glow because he physically touched it. Yeah. The ways in which we can expand and disseminate because of that, and feed more space because of that, rather than uh, get swept up one way or another, or rather than not be grounded, because ultimately that would take the energy, that would consolidate it, that would make it one thing that we can, a candle that we can put in a candle holder, rather than just being this, flouncy, bouncy, whimsical beauty. As great as that is, um, this is why we offer things to the forest, and this is why the Fae had protectors, because as flouncy, bouncy, and beautiful as they were also too beautiful for this world. Um, Too beautiful for this world, and a lot of us don't even believe in them anymore. Um, and that's the ways in which it doesn't necessarily take touch to see to believe. You don't have to be physical with your love for it to be seen or believed. You don't have to be physical with your compassion for it to be an expanding or growing thing. Um, and you can believe in love outside of that. And maybe because this is also evens, perfections, it's prime numbers is vibrating, but it's also easy to dissect and easy to reflect. So that's also giving me very safe, and that can also mean lonely. Um, in which case we want our love to extend and it's not right. Um, but because we're trying too hard, it's like high beams. We don't have to do that, jutting around the world. We're blinding people. And this is often what I say. It's not that angels temper their light, or demons, but it is that if they shined as bright, they would burn your eyes out. And so in that way, like what a pleasant thing. Go you Scorpio, but also be mindful of uh, of how you're able to protect yourself. And it's also like they say with therapy, like find a or go to therapy when or find a therapist, go to therapy when you're doing great, because when you're doing super bad is when you're not thinking straight. Um, and not that it's too late, but when you're not thinking straight. And so I think this is a little bit of that. Like you're doing super great now, so hone in on that. but don't be superfluous with yourself. Yeah. Dear Sagittarius, what say you? Sagittarius, where are you? Interesting. What a big change of pace, because I feel very calm and I feel very warm and I feel very like close to firelight. Um, which is a beautiful tempered, even fire quality to a very fiery sign. Queen of Hearts, Six of Hearts. Um, so there is a lot of emotional energy here, but perhaps we've been able to transmute it to modes of compassion. Sagittarius is often so curious, and so curious, in fact, that they, try to fix a lot of their own problems, um, or do a lot of research about it and try and figure out the hows and whys so that they can have a proper directive. Um, at least a Queen of Hearts quality, Sagittarius. Um, that I feel like it's built something really beautiful and really grounded and very much a simple, sweet reflection of that in the world, like a secret garden. Um, and just because it is that doesn't mean that it cannot be shared. I think in this case, perhaps the Queen aspect of this Sagittarius is tempering their flame despite it doing exactly what it needs to do and knowing what it wants to do. Um, Also, don't get too cocky or too confident. Stay humble, stay realistic. But these are all really good things. These are all really good things. It's a humble heart, really. This Queen of Hearts is rocking. Um, I really ought to. Oh, interesting. Okay. I'm just kind of noticing that now, is both are inverted. So, like, tap into that. Like, everything's fine, everything's going well. This six is also perfection. I feel like we can be really hard on ourselves or not have faith in the things that we've created, or their solidity or their strength. But this is the stable structure and the hopeful breath that helps us pull an arrow back too, very much. Um, and I think the ways in which we can hone in to faith in ourselves rather than doubt, so that those things can grow and not feel unsafe and not feel like we're, hoarding or hindered by growth, or like we're losing value to a secret in sharing it. Sagittarius does a lot of the research, but also has some good answers and some good perspective, uh, and I think is perhaps a key point in assisting Libra to balance out this very transitive Jupiter Gemini, picking which reality to be a part of next, uh, and other energies within Gemini that exist unsure, and ways in which Venus retrograde is blinded and can be redirected. This is very much about having some faith in yourself, if it is not there yet. And definitely gratitude, because these are really beautiful cards. Where I think all very positive leading cards, uh, if you understand your perspective shift. Because cards being inverted does in fact mean they're present, but that we are blinded to them in some way, or blocking ourselves from them in some way. So pick your target and look through any hurdles. Capricorn. Capricorn, baby. Now that you are missing Pluto, how are you feeling? All right, Cappy. Capricorn, where are you? Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, okay. I didn't like any of that. My hands hurt now. My hands and my forearms hurt. Um, and my elbows, really. It was just like stiffness creeping up. Like rigidity, like I'm carrying too much or fighting too hard. Oof, okay. Nine of Hearts reversed. Eight of Hearts. Ace of Hearts reversed. Oh man, I feel like this is the ways in which, oh gosh, the ways in which we like grasp on to things afraid of change. Um, it's also very much like grip strength too. But your forearms are very much spiritual energy as well. There's black magic rituals where you're supposed to, take the hand or the forearm of somebody. Um, but with this nine, it's like you've given it, you've given it, and not gotten anything in return. Um, you've given, and not gotten anything in return in such a way that it's like affected the confidence. It's affected like a sense of value, sense of self-worth. Is this the ways in which American stocks and the dollar are also failing? Yes, yes, it is. But also the ways in which we failed ourselves. We go macro, we go micro, we go macro, we go micro. Um, and the understanding of what that value really is or ever was. Um, what did we really give? Because a lot of times when we're seeking love, we're giving away the worst parts of ourselves, begging for people to accept it, rather than stepping into the better version, or into the version of ourselves that we want to attract or that we ultimately want to be. Um, and even in, again, a micro thing, we've attached so much spirit and spiritual energy to money, that we've exploited it as a resource, and it's taken on an identity all of its own. Granted, I think, uh, in gifting in general, these things always take on a spirit. These twos and fros, these giving and givings of energy, of be it, just words and your energy, or be it a physical thing with your energy and the thought and the intention attached. What do all of those things mean? And even in terms of currency, it's come to mean a lot of enslavement. It's come to mean ownership of time. It's come to mean control. And it's come to mean exploitation of resource. How does that apply to the ways in which we physically given ourselves to the world, to partners, to labor, etc.? And the ways in which that is not sustainable, that has not rewarded us, and shit needs to change. If you've given your heart over and over again, openly and willingly, and been kicked in return, then we need to take a step back and realize, and discern, sift through these things, and try to discern what the unifying factor is. Um, do we have a type because we're looking for something, when we should be like looking within ourselves or in an unhealed area? Are we, attracting that with that which we do not want, um, because of certain ways that we are acting or behaving or what have you? Um, and yeah, absolutely, the ways in which gold standard shifts and currency shifts, and um, the ways in which we give and do not feel rewarded. And that comes to with this Ace of Hearts, is how do we define reward? How is it that we reward ourselves? Um, and how is it that we punish ourselves? And a lot of times, when we punish ourselves to get this, comes with more of this, and that doesn't get us that. That doesn't reward this in any way. But if we define what this is, what is this? What does this feel like? What is feeling elated and feeling rewarded and feeling reciprocated actually feel and look like? And even in a non person to person context, the ways in which we reward or punish ourselves, for a lot of people, this is drinking, in which it functions for both. We go out to celebrate and get shit faced, or we go out because our heart is broken and we're super angry and we had a terrible day and we get shit faced. So, what is it then? What kind of reward or punishment is it then? And, similar to many other things, the difference between medicine and poison is in the dose. And we're waking up. So stop poisoning yourself and find, whether that be with codependency or love or external validation or, you know, gluttonous buying or yeah, drinking or anything else. Write a list. Write a list. And that will help you more clearly discern the things that you do for reward's sake or for punishment's sake. And this is why cookies have such a high place on my reward. Um, have such a high place on my reward list because they are just so happy going down and so much better than a margarita. And something that makes you laugh like that. Person, place, thing. But ultimately, because you can do it for yourself. Because you can do it for yourself. All this Capricorn, all this fucking earth energy, you're self-sustainable, motherfucker. You got this. Stop outsourcing. Stop mining other people's experiences for wealth. And let go of Pluto so we can shift. Aquarius, already. You're the last of them, baby. Aquarius, my love. Where are you for this Venus retrograde? Ooh, I don't know. Anxious and clearing. Oof. Seven of spades, four of diamonds. A lot of thoughts, not enough wealth. A lot of fingers and pies, not enough reward, not enough to show for. A lot of ideas, not enough space. A lot's going on in this head of yours, perhaps in this external world of yours. Or maybe not at all. Maybe it's only in your head, and it can. No, that's not it. If it were only in your head, this four of diamonds wouldn't feel so lonely. Honestly, is what I'm getting. Is what I'm getting. If it was only that, then it wouldn't feel so lonely in there. Granted, yeah, for sure, sometimes we are our own worst enemies in that, and we can build up these stories that ultimately push people away. I feel like Aquarians know what I'm talking about in that context. But I feel like it's maybe also the ways in which we've overreached or found ourselves doing all of these things with all of these people or places or surrounded by all of these ideas and don't necessarily find like girth and tangible truth in them all. Um, and that is one of the ways in which a full room can still feel quite lonely. Um, it's something about understanding too, like maybe just not seeing eye to eye or not feeling like people are willing to understand you. Uh, so solitary is maybe where you finally or really get to let your heart feel free or open. And that's really hard too in a world that's asking for, more compassion or that's seeming to be more and more important. The expansion of our light cones and in crowded but uh, talking over and nobody listening kind of rooms, uh, that can feel like very tight, empty, echoed space. Um, and all the better to bounce off of, really. And when these thoughts get to echoing, get to being more cyclical. But how do we break that up? Uh, was it Leo? Leo had something similar, but it was breaking up mirrors. It was breaking up light. This is breaking up sound, and light and sound moves similarly. However, I think with moving with moving light, you look face directly at it. You have to reflect something at it. With moving sound, it's like you can scoop like carvings out of a wall, and you sort of like lacrosse throw it, or like underhand it into another space. It sort of molds in that way, and ricochets as well. But the same way light can fill a space, sound does as well. Um, and the ways in which that we can interrupt that bouncing around. If it's thoughts, bounce it off of other people that you know and trust, in which case we fill up this empty space, rather than just bounce it around ourselves. Uh, somebody, somebody's heart matches yours, at least able to equalize or neutralize with it, and give you an honest perspective. Um, but also, we fill that room with things that can absorb our sound. And sometimes people refuse to listen. Sometimes people just have their ears closed because they've got so much chaos going on up in there too. Um, and maybe that's all you need to be able to expand a little bit compassion, is understand that they've got a lot going on up there too. Um, but also, that's no reason why this should feel so lonely, and cannot be filled with positive thought, positive interaction, positive intention, and the kind of reciprocation or bouncing off, or equalizing and filling of like a good sound system, which many a sacred place is constructed in such a beautiful acoustic way, uh, that it is a resonator. So, what do you resonate with? Who do you resonate with? Where are you finding that kind of peace? And even in terms of yourself, if again, these are just thoughts and not people or things, um, or if they are things or thoughts, uh, there are thoughts that interrupt that cycle. They're just bound with other things. So find ways in which we can stimulate, and interrupt those things. we find ourselves lost and lonely, we call our mom, we call our dad, we call our sibling or something. We find ourselves feeling, less than, we talk to a best friend and talk to ourselves in the mirror and talk to our dog. Um, if we find ourselves feeling like we are lacking a lot, we find things that we are grateful for to balance it out. And that is the ways in which we interrupt these coagulation cycles, interrupt the blood clotting so as to maintain flow and to continue to grow and not feel like your heart is in a box, man. Because we sure need more than that. Okay, I'll pull one for everybody, all at once, for Venus retrograde and Chiron in Aries, for the whole collective, so we can put all of this together. What say you, love? Ooh, okay. There's tightness in my jaw that fucking sucks. Um, there's been a lot of talk about extending our compassion. However, I think a lot of people have just gone and willy-nilly opened up their heart chakra and not realized that there is a more intricate course of energy pathway that exists than just these seven chakras. It's not just bam, 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 bam. In fact, there's separate lobes to your heart chakra. There's Hrit and a secret heart chakra. There's a guru chakra that filters through the throat chakra. There's pleasure centers in your root chakra and in your mouth. And because your mouth has three separate chakras on its own. Um, in which case, I think because we've expanded our heart chakra so quickly, it's come with a lot of ego and a lot of running at the mouth where people don't really know what the fuck they're saying, or they're gritting their teeth because they're taking in all of this, anti-pleasure sensory information that's infuriating because we've been so bound to pleasure and pleasure seeking and all this ego stimulation and ego reification rather than pure awareness. We've built the ego to such a degree that the death of one will surely topple many towers. Um, and the more we can stay grounded in it, all the better for our rage, for our frustration, for the grittiness, for the rigidness, for the intensity, for the splitting at the seams. Um, your heart chakra can expand more than just in this egoic sense and straight up and into the throat directly so that you're, open to all of this other bullshit. I've even read that uh, because we're not aware of this unruly opening of the heart chakra and to the throat chakra can cause people to, hear and see a lot of things. This is the dangerous parts of spiritual awakening, or the jarring parts of spiritual awakening. I would never say it's dangerous. We just don't fucking know what we're doing sometimes, um, and don't care to know either, which is the problem. In blissful ignorance. Um, I have closed my heart chakra. And that is not to say that it's sealed off from the world. That is to say that it expanded in a different plane so that my energy could filter back down and back up. And then my throat chakra is much more level. I'm much more aware of the impact of things that I say and of ways that I can say it. It's understanding styles of learning, even not just, well, my heart says, so I'm going to say, because there's some tact involved, there's some cognition involved. This is where your intellect and your intuition are not in communicado, because they're just running off at the mouth and they're just, turning the stream on full blast rather than the energy being able to disseminate and churn and filter and carry even more illuminatingly so, and carry even stronger so, because now it's engaging multiple parts of us. No wonder we're so sensitive. We've been going about the energy body all wrong. Interesting. King of Hearts, Ace of Clubs. In which case, this is interesting because it's very much inverted to, I think, typical elements in their gendered associations, because this Ace is blue, but is also club, so fire. So we're thinking more protruding, more more protruding energy, more penetrating energy, extension, even, limbs. And this King of Hearts has been here before. Is softness, is love, is integrity, is honor with it. It's, a man who's very comfortable with their feminine side, with their emotions. But are they very comfortable with their feminine side and their emotions? I feel like there's still layers of doubt, or still layers of obfuscation, or of hiding. And that's 100% also the chakra thing that I was talking about. As open as your heart chakra could be, um, it's like taking it's like taking the shower head off of your shower. Unnecessary. But you can get a really lovely shower head that feels tempered and warm and wonderful. Um, or, like watering plants with a jet stream. Because my heart chakra is open, rather than a fucking nice, pleasant, rainy drizzle. Which is where this mental nature of the feminine really ought to lend to. However, I do think in a very turf-ridden world, and where femininity and feminism has gained its power uh, through covert submission to masculinity, or through um, taking it on as itself and assimilating, which is where we find, colonizer assimilation, and a whiteness, but permeating in many different ways. Um, will that kind of femininity know enough to wait for a soft rain, or use the sprinkler instead of the jet stream? I really fucking hope so. I really hope so. Um, and I will do my best to hope that we can balance it out at the very least. Um, but both of those energies are being called to a different purpose than what they've gotten comfortable doing, and that's going to be difficult. However, now we know. Now we are very aware of the tools we have and the levels of intensity in which we need to use them. So, the divine feminine doesn't have to burn things down just to prove their masculinity, and divine masculinity doesn't have to hide. It doesn't have to hide, but it also doesn't need to be putrefied by ego and overconfidence, because that's very much that's the yellow that's tinging this, and that's blockages in the solar plexus, which is funny because the people that are overconfident are the ones that are often the most insecure, and those are the ones that thump the loudest. Those are the ones that thump the loudest. Yeah, these energies are fucked, man. The divine feminine, please don't make a fool of yourself or Mother Earth. And the divine masculine, please don't suffocate yourself from repression or overexertion. Not everything's a game, and you know what, the sensitivity of man is also just because they're boys inside still, and they're so wanton and needy, and and I get it. Experience is beautiful. Life is beautiful. We want a little bit of every beauty, don't we? But we cannot have everything. Not everything is yours. And this is the misunderstanding with ownership and oneness. And this is a very deep misunderstanding with what exists in plant medicine industry and spiritual healing industry and the ways in which that has grown. We seek psychedelic trance or death or God as if it's the thing that completes us, when really it's been manufactured to lead us farther away from ourselves. And so we still find ourselves wanting. How do we provide for others if we cannot provide source energy for ourselves? How do we protect others if we can't even be honest with ourselves? And likewise, how do we create new when femininity has gotten so comfortable with destruction? Not femininity, divine feminine, whatever. Conversely, I think the truer that this king gets to themselves and the more grounded, the more they're able to discern emotions rather than repress them, the less intense and detrimental they'll get, and the more ways in which we soften around our integrity, so that it is not abrasive, but it is firm, and that it is not entitled, but it is enjoying, are the ways in which I think that divine femininity can absolutely step back into this ancient archetypal power where they move like the ocean, where tides turn. And that is where we need to be. All right. Love you. Party on. I wish you lots of compassion and illumination and patience while Venus is retrograde, and exponentially more so when Mercury is in retrograde. But until then, I'll be seeing you.